notification. The man babies are present.
Yeah.
It's good to go.
We are live.
We're live.
Yes, we are.
Have you paid your dues, Jack? Yes, sir. The check is in the mail.
We paid our dues.
Oh, we forgot. It's tradition by this point.
Ah, the refreshing cup of always pouring coffee.
Yeah. You know, I've tried to drink coffee a few times, but it doesn't stay in long. Like I have to be.
That sounds like a intestinal problem.
Yeah, it's like
And yet you drink energy drinks. How the hell do you keep those in?
yeah. I don't have that. I have no problem with energy drinks. No problem with energy drinks. It's just
Wow.
coffee is rough on my stomach.
And
Within a couple minutes, I'm.
freight train
Yep.
out of town, huh?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
How's everybody doing today? This is Indie Volt,
Good morning. Good morning.
the Breakfast Buzz.
We're waiting for people to get in. Trico is in the house.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else yet? Indie Volt.
Yeah,
That's us.
we got
I haven't even
five.
gotten our notification that we're live yet.
Yeah,
So
you haven't? Yeah, we're live.
what's up? What's up with that?
I don't think I got a notification the other day that we were live. Hello, everyone. I'll take the coffee down now. I'll take the
Yeah,
coffee down.
Janella Way. That's already up there. Yeah, I can see the feed. We're good to go. I'm on my Facebook page. We're on YouTube. We're on Indie Volt Live.
Yes, we are.
We're on
Yes,
Indie Volt Radio.
we are now. Yeah, we're on Indie Volt Radio Live. Not
Pull
in the
that,
U.S.
pull
though.
that switch. Pull the switch. Pull the switch. And you took out our coffee. M3SOZ, buddy. We haven't heard from you in a while. What's up?
Yeah.
Welcome back, my friend. Cue that morning Barney music.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show.
oh, it's been a very interesting 2 days, Randy. We got stuff to talk about.
Lots to talk about. Dave, the Supreme's in the house.
Hey, Dave, how's it going, sir?
Hey,
We're very disappointed in Mr. Professor Lutkins. He's selling his hearse. He's got to sell it. Too hard to store for the winter.
wouldn't you call that breaking news?
Yeah, breaking news. Trico Lutkins is selling his hearse. He is selling his hearse. He's didn't want that much for it though. I think it's like
What?
asking, yeah.
Good morning.
Yeah. um, yeah. I haven't get a chance to ride in it yet. I'm afraid that
And it might be gone before you even get a chance to ride in that hearse.
I'm afraid the next time, when I get to ride in a hearse, I won't know it.
Just be glad you're not riding in the back, buddy. That's all.
Oh, so has everyone had a good day today? We hope you have. But before we can get into the show, I gotta roll the intro.
It rolled the intro.
Here we go, everybody. We'll be right back.
Hang on. Now that M3SOZ has mentioned it, we're going to have to get a Barney opening. You know that? Don't you?
Yeah.
Hello, kids. Today's the day to read comics.
Today is the day to read comics
Because tomorrow they're going to be $8.
Yep.
So get ready.
Has everyone
Holy
heard about that?
crap.
Yeah. It's gonna be very interesting. The next couple of, I mean, I don't. When does that start, Randy?
Ted Davies in the house. Say what?
When
Uh,
does that start?
Who is what? When does that start?
Yeah.
Probably with the 5G. Oh man, mess. I almost called it the A word. But Anthony's in the house. Anthony, how you doing, bud? Good to hear from you. I backed your book yesterday, buddy. Good
Yeah,
book.
yeah. If you're looking
Anthony
at that banner,
Figaro. Yeah.
oh, hey, how's it going, Anthony? Anthony's on the show with us Tuesday. Has the book God's Hand, which is
Yes.
funding now for another, I think, 29 days now.
M3SOZ, we're always happy whenever you can give us suggestions.
Yeah. I started actually putting hashtags in the titles now too.
Cool. There we go.
Um,
See,
that
you're helping us.
Yeah.
We appreciate all the suggestions we can get our hands on.
Oh yeah. If you've seen that banner, your eyes aren't tricking you. DC.
Big news from yesterday. Yes. Hey, guess
DC
what?
is-
We're gonna start raking you for $8.
Raising comic prices to $7.99.
If you want to read about the new 5G characters, those are going to be the same price as always. But if you want the old staple guys, $8. We need $8 because we can. Those are all going to be under Black Label now. Maybe Green Lantern will really be doing some interesting things with that ring after all. You never know. But Hal Jordan, Bruce Wayne, Clark Kent, Diana Prince, they'll all be over in the Black Label line. But
I don't like 5G. Every time I hear 5G, I think there's a new phone upgrade.
I think bad phones. That's
Yeah.
what I think. Bad, inferior phones coming up. They're swearing that those phones have bad health indications and all sorts of crazy stuff. So, Gabriel's in the house. Good morning, Gabe. Thanks for coming on. On to the chat.
Gabe, MVSOZ. Trico says.
Oh, they won't. The $8 books aren't going to be the floppy books. It'll be the Black Label books. They're just moving them up. They'll be slightly larger and slicker, and they'll actually look like magazines. I think that's what they're after. But
It's gonna be whack.
just the thought that they're doing it, and they sit there and they scratch their head wondering why their facsimile books sell as well as they do. But yet here's more crappy slick shit.
I did pay. I think I paid $8 for a Deadpool
sorry,
64-page book.
I think we need to throw that warning up.
Oh yeah, here
There we go.
You got it. Okay.
Yeah. There might be some swearing today when we start, if we're going to keep talking about the mainstream. Holy crap.
Trico says charge almost double for mainstream comics. That'll get more readers.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's the same type of business philosophy that the cable companies are getting into lately, where they're going to stop all of the extra deals to get you loaded on to different packages, and they're just going to rape you as much as they can in order to keep their bottom line profit margin up. So we'll see how great that lasts while everybody cuts their cord, while all these other streaming services offer more premium product. And they sit there and wonder why they're losing subscribers. That's really sensible.
Ted says DC stands for double cost, double.
Double the cost, double cost,
And-
double cost, double cross. Holy,
And
the 5G stuff looks absolutely horrible. It's like nobody has learned from Marvel. I mean, but DC has always copied Marvel on a lot of their trends in the past, and you'd think they'd sat back and went, oh, their numbers really didn't go up when they did this, but we're gonna do it anyway. Yeah. Let's have Green Lantern a direct ripoff from Riri Williams. That'll be hot.
Yeah.
That'll sell books. Instead of doing Rocket and Icon and Hardware and focusing on Static, which they absolutely should do, let's do Teen Lantern. That'll be hot.
Yeah.
Just get rid of Bendis now, please, if you can. Just I got nothing against the guy personally, but holy crap, when you start thinking, well, let's just rip off Ironheart, it's going to be big. That they're actually going to make some money at this mess. They just need to tuck their tail between their legs and stop.
Yeah. It's MWSOZ says I think where you put in the comics is more important than the high price. Yeah, and they don't make good stories. It takes so much work. And remember Dan DiDio says there is no new talent out there. Show him the new talent. Show him who they should be hiring. But there is no new talent out there.
They're not looking. That's the big problem. I was just talking to Varian before we went on the air. This market, this industry has never been more freaking vulnerable, more open, more ripe for a new company to step in and to show how things are supposed to get done. It's just a matter of having to wrangle Diamond and convince the retailers that you're viable enough for them to invest in you, and somebody can walk in and just take over this entire joint, and very easily. And all of a sudden, they're a huge powerhouse. Doing a half a dozen to a dozen books that are really top quality. I can see that happen, and somebody could do that within a year to a year and a half, easy. It'd just take a little bit of money, a lot of effort, a lot of work, but I could see it happen. You get somebody like on the equivalent level of a Jim Shooter restarting a company like what he did originally with Valiant, way back when, if Shooter were to do an equivalent of Valiant right now with the storytelling that he had and the characters that he had when Valiant first started up, they'd make a huge mark in this industry.
Yeah, I think that
Just because they're telling entertaining comics, because there aren't any entertaining that's why all the crowdfunding stuff is taken off the way that it has. People want to be entertained desperately, and the DC figures, well, we'll just black label them. That'll be great,
yeah, and I'm also upset that they had to use the term black label, something like that. Speaking,
Well,
all jokes aside,
their marketing, like I said before we went on the air, I just honestly, truly wish DC would make an intelligent marketing decision just once, and capitalize on it just once and because they haven't done anything in the last 10 years that remotely, I'm sure the retailers will back me up here, that would remotely impress them. And quite frankly, calling their line Black Label, if you're going to make a product a Black Label, that's a really bad beer. That's the closest product widget that you can associate the title to. Am I wrong?
yeah.
Black Label.
I mean, when I think Black Label, though, when I first heard the name, I thought they would. I thought it was adult only comics.
I thought so too. Maybe they are. Maybe that's what they're going to do. Well, only these adult guys are going to read about Bruce. All of the staple characters that you see in the movies. I guess only adults are going to read those, aren't they? So let's do it. Let's do them all Black Label. Like I said, maybe Green Lantern will start doing some really inventive stuff with his ring. All it takes is a little willpower.
Eat out the refrigerator or something. This is gonna be.
Well, it might keep his girlfriend out of the refrigerator. I don't know. M3SOZ says, "Where's the real life Bruce?" I'm sure he said Wayne, with the love for comics. Absolutely, and it wouldn't take much. It's the work. It's the work and the effort right now, and the recognition, the branding that would take that would take the longest, and that would take visits out to retailers, and you'd have to do some hardcore diamond wrangling. You'd have to go in and say, we're going to do this, and we want your support.
I keep thinking any day now, I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna see Jeff Bezos announces Amazon Publishing, and
well, if he ever wanted to do that, he could call me.
Yeah,
I'd do it. Anybody out there that wants to do that, there's so much talent out there, and there's so many people that aren't being used that would do comics if they had the chance to do sequential art. They'd jump at it. It's just so irritating. Like I said, I've never wanted to slap this industry upside the head harder than I do now, and it's so frustrating because I can see it. I can see it. I can see it all there, and I see it ripe for the picking. You can get enough retailers behind you, and you can just run it.
M3SOZ says, I don't think they market to kids anyway.
Well, see, this is the same problem that they had when Diamond became the chief the monopoly distributor that they are, is that they went around and told everybody, your main demographic is a guy who sits in his basement that's 25 to 30 years old, and he's got a big belly, and he looks like that comic book dude on The Simpsons, and he's got a lot of income, and he loves superheroes, and you know what? He loves scantily clad females a lot. So you get Continuity coming out with butt shots, and you got Image coming out with the whole Circle template era come out of that, because Diamond kept going, well, we've done demographic studies, and that's what they say. They didn't bother to cater to kids. They didn't bother to cater to women. They didn't bother to try to make it a point to diversify. And even when they did, like Milestone, it turned into a major embarrassment, because all they had to do was see the first books off of the press and see how muddy that they looked and go, dudes, this really looks bad. You need to do something nice and bright and loud and directly in their face. We're doing comics. We're not doing real life. What can you do? Suddenly, when Dark Knight comes out and Watchmen comes out, and, Watchmen didn't make hardly any money when it was first out. Dark Knight made some notice, but not a lot of money. I mean, they made money, but they didn't make tons of money. But now the whole industry has been chasing that ass ever since. That version of comics. There's so many different things that they could do with the genre. And they go, well, we have to be realistic, and we have to have, lots of gore and people murdering each other, and we have to talk about real life, because that's what our readers want to read about, is real life. Yeah,
Yeah.
And now they sell literally a tenth of the comics that they used to sell back in the 50s when the Comic Code Authority first come on. So whenever they did try to cater to kids, it was too late.
Trico says Marvel was gonna come out with a blue ribbon line.
I could see that happening. You
Marvel
know,
blue ribbon. Marvel Select.
Archie used to have that red circle,
Yeah.
red circle line.
I
They've
think
tried to do superheroes a couple times. You know,
Yeah, I maybe I'll do like a last call sobriety line. Um, last call anonymous. That's what we'll do.
everybody would expect it to be real life. You're better off doing root beer, your root beer line,
Yeah. Root beer press. Yeah.
root beer
That's it.
press. That's
That's Kate.
funny. Actually, you wanna start with you want a company that has a earlier in the alphabet title. You know, Arrow Comics would be ideal.
And
About that
ABC Comics.
ABC, well, ABC I think is taken.
Yeah.
Somebody's already done ABC Comics. So you'd have to snoop around and see what name you could get, but you know,
There's
and all of these silly independent companies who shall remain nameless, and should remain nameless, all want to do IPs or so-called IPs. They're not really IPs. They're imitations of other imitations of other imitations, titles. Oh, I got a unique spin on such and such an idea. Well, let's do this and do it for 6 issues and try to sell it to Hollywood. No. You sit down and you do brands, just like what Marvel and DC did back in the 60s. You create characters, actual characters, that you have actual writers write, and drawn by artists who actually care and know how to do a sequential art page, you know, that are getting paid a decent wage, and you just kick it out and you keep kicking it out, you know.
Yeah.
Just irritating. Anyway.
M3SOZ says, I find a lot of the art looks boring these days, probably because of tracing and light board use. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
these guys aren't getting paid a lot, you know, especially so-called mainstream professional wages. They're not pulling down a lot of money.
And let's be honest.
That's why nobody wants to tell you how much they're getting paid, because they're not making a living.
A lot of these guys, they grabbed them up off of, guys and girls, they grabbed a lot of them off of Tumblr and off the internet.
Oh, really? Really? Where they grabbed a lot of them was out of the country because the standard of living is so much lower. They can pay them lower than standard professional rates, and these guys are living high on the hog in Argentina and Brazil and, you know, all over where our Indie Vault listeners are all over the world. You know, Mexico and Argentina. It's so much easier. The standard of living is so much lower than the States. You know, that Marvel and DC literally gave up on trying to find talent here in the States 10, 15 years ago when they pulled out of the conventions, when they stopped doing portfolio reviews, when they stopped actually looking and actually trying to turn this into a prestigious gig, you know, to be drawing comics. Back in my day, son, it used to be a real prestigious thing to be working in comics, and only a few people got to do it because only a few people were really good.
Right.
You know, and nowadays it's just, hey, want to draw a funny book? My cousin, you know, is going to get a gig at Marvel. You can draw the book if you want, you know.
Yeah,
I got, because I'm commercial arts experience, I went to college. I got a piece of paper. Let me draw your funny book for you. I don't know how to draw panel-to-panel sequential art, but I could draw comics.
well, okay, is everybody familiar with how... I'm going to show you something what I think has happened in this industry, and I could be wrong. I usually am, but I want to show you guys something. Let me see here if I can share it.
But yeah, in college, when you go through, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I was looking at M3SOZ's remark again. In college, they teach you all the tools, commercial art tools, you know, and one of those big tools is light boxing and tracing, you know. And a lot of these guys, a lot of that M3SOZ is dead on. A lot of that stuff is light boxed and traced, and it's just why, you know. There used to be, again, you go back to these 70s books, these facsimile books that DC is bewildered about how they're selling. You got some guys with some real interesting styles out there who aren't drawing reality, and they know it. They're drawing comic books.
A couple of days ago, well, actually a couple of weeks ago, I seen some art. I was in Second and Charles, and everybody's familiar. Everybody at some point, I guess, has seen a D&D rule book, you know, a quest book. They usually look like this. I think I'm displaying it now. You can see it right there on the side of the page there. D&D Tomb of Annihilation. Usually looks like that.
Anthony wants to come in.
Does he? Okay.
Yeah, he says I'm way more animated than in the morning.
I will
That's
send
funny.
you an invite.
And, we meant it when we talked to you on Tuesday, Anthony. You are always welcome on here, just like Trico is always welcome on here.
Yeah. I'll send him an invite if you want to come in.
Send him an invite.
Yeah.
But anyway, you were talking about a D&D rule book. Look at that. It looks like your boring mainstream or not mainstream independent comic book cover.
Well,
Who did that?
I'm not sure of the artist, but I don't mind it. I don't mind it because the D&D art has always looked like that. It's always been
Well, yeah,
that
yeah.
style, that painterly
Yeah.
style, that kind of Mike Frazetta-esque style.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And it's got its place. It does.
look at that.
What about it? There's about 3 different elements there that they kind of tried to put together into something called a composition. Why? Is that like an anime look? Because I can't see that.
It
how the
when I
artwork
seen
looks.
it when I seen it on the
Oh
show.
yeah, I see it there now. Yeah, they're trying for an anime type look to it. Yeah.
When I seen it on the shelf, I'm like, that's not a D&D book. It is a D&D book. What the actual? It was just the first D&D book I've seen that didn't look like.
You think the
You
guy
know.
lives in the States? Who did it? They might be
Probably.
They might be cheapening up their artwork.
It was behind the shelf, so I could not get.
that could be why it was at Second and Charles too.
Um,
And this book ain't selling very well. Let's send them. It's
But I
pretty
mean,
soon
all-
we'll find it at Ollie's. There's somebody who's seen Bride of Frankenstein. Look at that.
all the art usually, and so that just sticks out. But it was funny because I had sent that to a friend, and he said, "Oh man," he said, "that looks horrible," and I tell you what, in a couple of days, or a couple of weeks, we're gonna see the SJWs take over D&D, and I'm like,
that wasn't
and
Gamergate?
sure as hell.
That
An
wasn't part
article
of
comes
Gamergate?
out.
Yeah.
A video came out with that girl saying D&D isn't just for neckbeards anymore.
I have a cousin. He likes to play D&D.
Yeah. Well, it's still most of Hollywood still looks at it like they do like they did comics 10, 20 years ago. They have a little bit more respect for comics now once, you get enough freaking movies that break $1 billion.
Mm-hmm.
But
Interview SOZ says, I think it's really easy to tell why I like the older books.
Yeah.
Neat covers, man. Says I would be great for that kind of gear. D&D. There's a lot of D&D documentaries out. I just come across on Amazon Prime. Real deep history in there, and real neat. They actually they started in a little office, but then they moved into an old hotel, and they said the floors were not safe to walk on, and
well, yeah,
but-
because they're out scraping by. I'm
But they
sure
were-
Magic has the same kind of story until they got taken over, by Wizards of the Coast.
they were typing up like the rules, and then they would pull it out and go into the art room and hand the artists. I need some goblins in that little blank section there. I need some guys fighting a dragon,
Yeah.
and these guys would do it. And of course, they were probably all on drugs at the time too. But
A lot of artists were back then. It's just the way it worked. That's when the good recreational drugs were circulating.
nice and high now. I can draw anything.
You go back in your, a lot of that back then was mind expanding before they got all the extra chemicals in there. They used to experiment with those drugs on the campuses for that reason, because it would stretch people's imagination. And a lot of art wasn't just gaming stuff. It was comic book art. It was just everything at the time was just, you were hitting the summer of love, and you had a lot of rock and roll back then. Still sells like crazy from that period today because of the imagination and the creativity that was tied into that. So it's like Bill Hicks says, you never hear a positive drug story.
Yeah.
Because all of his experiences on drugs were pretty freaking positive. But in the news you never hear about those. So that's part of that. That's part of that era.
Yeah, sorry, I just got a update. I'm like, huh? But it wasn't for me, I guess so.
Anthony,
Okay.
back then, when we're supposed to stop, why wasn't I told? Oh. Well, nowadays there's all these extra chemicals in it. Back then it was pretty, some of that stuff is pretty raw.
Randy, we
Yeah.
also should take a moment to talk about this here. We talked about it off here for a second, but everyone should once
Prepare
again.
yourself. Oh, yeah.
Hollywood,
Death of Superman.
Hollywood Boulevard Superman Christopher Dennis dies at 52. That's very sad. I watched the documentary with him as well. I think it was on Netflix a few years.
If you've never been down there on Hollywood and walked the block around Grauman's Chinese theater, they have these guys that dress up as your favorite character, almost like going to Disneyland and seeing the Disney characters walking around the park. You have these guys that volunteer, make their own suits, and walk around as recognizable Hollywood icons. You see Marilyn Monroe back there. Christopher Dennis used to walk around as Superman to everybody because he's got that look. He's got a square jaw, and he can put the spit curl in his hair, and it's relatively well built. Put the suit on and walk around down there, and the kids and the people walk up and go, "Hey, Superman, oh my goodness, let me take your picture," because they're all down there looking at the sidewalk anyway, where all of these stars have written their names and planted their handprints or their footprints or whatever track they recognizable track that they can make, and they're all walking down there and enjoying that anyway. If you haven't been down there, that last time I was there was a little dirty, but it's still worth your time to go down there and look around. But last time I was down there, they had the world premiere film. They were just premiering Laura Croft, the first one. That's how long ago it's been since I've been down there. And actually got to see Angelina Jolie from about 200 yards away. Because of the crowd. Hey, what's that over there?
Yeah. Christopher Dennis, he was in that documentary. I forget who
He'd done it for years.
Yeah, he
One
he
of those
did the
guys that
documentary.
gives to the people, just because they thrive on that attention.
Yeah, the documentary kind of took a dark turn with him, but because I remember he was saying someone was his mother, and for some reason they didn't put it like on her Wikipedia page, or like she didn't have a birth certificate or something. It was a very weird story, but
He
if you get a
was-
chance to look.
Was the son of a famous person.
Yeah. And the girl who plays Wonder Woman out there, I think, just got a few legitimate acting roles now.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes they go on to be recognized, and sometimes they don't want to. Sometimes they just want to walk around and be adored by the people.
Yeah, and they get a couple
Represent-
bucks out of it. Sometimes they ask for a couple
That-
bucks.
That also predates, I would think, cosplay. So
Yeah.
it's also a part of that at the convention scene. It's probably a big influence on it.
I did get a question from the Indie Volt Radio. Ask me anything, and
We love questions from Indie Volt Radio.
why is it, Randy? Do you feel that indie publishers tend to not go longer than 5 years? This question.
That's a good but also very obvious question. Usually these indie publishers don't last more than 5 years because their funds run out and they have to stop because they're not making money. Most of them aren't making money doing what they're doing. A lot of the current indie publishers are now they think that they're IP factories, or they're trying to get Hollywood's attention for the next movie, the next big hot movie. But really, they're a derivative, like I said earlier, of an earlier idea that's a derivative of an earlier idea that might have been optioned by Hollywood some time ago. And they need to stop, and they need to start doing brands. A lot of these companies, that's all they want to do is just print their favorite story instead of try to make a recognizable brand or an icon or a trademark out there that they could actually capitalize on. You don't get people out there trying to do the next Thunder Agents. They're out there trying to make the next American Splendor, or make the next whatever the last big comic book movie was, The Losers, or some other Vertigo property. John Wick maybe might be a brand, but even still, and if they're not doing that, these guys are buying licensing brands in order to do it. And these guys that own these brands, that own these licenses, insist on a lot of money up front and then a percentage of anything that you make. And that just constantly drains on the funds. You've got companies, you look at IDW's figures, they've got G.I. Joe and whatever else that they're licensing out. They have to pay out huge licensing fees, and they're constantly losing money. In the hopes, and if you read their financial statements, they're hoping that the next big Hollywood deal is right there around the corner.
Trico says their wife's 401k runs out in 5 years.
That too. You can run through an investment in a hurry if you're not really careful.
Trico Luckins also says 4 years that they make a rabbit movie, 3 years that they put themselves on Mount Rushmore.
All you can do is see about that, and it's not how big you are, it's how big they think you are. But the big problem is they don't think you're really big if you stop doing books. You run out of money, you stop doing books, you get forgotten about.
Well, how many people remember Arrow Comics?
How many people remember Massive Comics?
While you were talking, I wrote down a question about. I wanted to ask you. You had mentioned that people go through investments really quickly.
They can. If they're not careful. I mean, with Arrow Comics, we rotated a very small amount of money over and over and over again. We lasted 5 years.
Yeah.
With the third version of Arrow Comics, I think the first version of Arrow Comics lasted 4 or 5 years. Second version of Arrow Comics lasted maybe a year. They kicked out 2 titles, I think, 2 books, and they were done.
And let me get this question from M3SOZ, and then I'm gonna touch back on what you said, Randy. But was there any thoughts of Marvel starting a podcast?
Marvel started a number of podcasts. It's just that you don't know they existed because they were that bad. I'm dead serious. If you wanna see Marvel's been doing a regular podcast where they're trying to turn themselves into a lifestyle brand. Here's here's the salad that Juggernaut would love. That kind of stuff for years, ever since Amanat come on. And you'll see them every once in a while on the YouTube videos whenever one of the commentators that has their own channels doesn't have anything more to talk about. They'll tap over the Marvel site and pick up on the latest podcast because nobody's seeing that. It's 2, maybe 3 or 4 views. If they're maybe a couple hundred if they're lucky. That they'll get, and they're talking about, hey, this is really cool, and you get these obnoxious announcers up there who aren't talking realistically. Hey, everybody, let's go talk about Marvel today. Hey, so how do you think about Ms. Marvel? Oh, Ms. Marvel is wonderful. Look, she can stretch and do all sorts of wonderful things. You don't want to listen to that for very long without throwing up. And then they sit around and they wonder,
How come we're not getting the numbers we're getting? We should be having.
Yeah,
people.
I used
people
to watch
don't want to put up
DC
with that
Daily
crap.
Show on the DC Universe app, and then I watched DC Daily Show, and then I realized
Is that the one with Kevin Smith?
No. Though this is.
He's got a bad tendency of doing that anymore either. Or also, golly gee, folks, everything's wonderful. Look at this. This is so cool. This is great. This is phenomenal. Look at this. Oh, no, nobody wants to watch that. If you want to tell somebody something that's great, something's great. But there's always, you got to be realistic about this stuff.
Yeah.
Instead of over the top and try to act and.
Well, some people shield a little too hard.
And there's nothing wrong with a little bit of shtick, which is like what we do, talking about our porn career and all of this. But come on, don't be stupid. And there's so many of these videos. I looked at when you turned me on to YouTube. I looked at YouTube. A lot of stuff on YouTube, and 3/4 of it is just garbage. You're sitting there looking at it, and you get some starry-eyed person. Hey, everybody, this is great. We're going to do this today. And, oh no, you don't want to deal with that crap.
Yeah.
You want people talking. You want to have an exchange of ideas. You want to learn something. You want to be entertained with something. A little joke now and then. But the over-the-top sap and saccharine just does not sell unless you're, at that teeny bopper age where you think that's all cool.
Yeah.
Even the MTV VJs never got that. Well, most of them never got that bad.
Yeah. You mentioned, why comic companies don't go, and I wrote something down as I was thinking, but as you were talking, because I wanted to ask you, could companies though. Like,
And see, that's the majority of the independent companies too. Don't last more than 5 years, but you still have companies out there. But nobody remembers the companies. Everybody remembers the icons.
yeah,
ElfQuest. ElfQuest is still out there, even though they've jumped. They've been printed by every freaking comic company alive.
yeah,
I mean, that's viable. That has printed an ElfQuest, a version of ElfQuest at one point or another. You know, Cerebus is still around, but nobody remembers Aardvark Vanaheim Press, Dave Sims Company. They'll remember Cerebus. They don't remember the company.
yeah.
You know,
the
Turtles.
icons.
Look at Turtles.
Well,
Mirage.
yeah.
Who remembers Mirage Studios printed Turtles for years? They're what number is Turtles on right now? 100 and something
Yeah, you have to
at
be,
IDW.
Yeah, you have
That's
to be
really a viable license for them.
you have to be a Turtles fan to remember Mirage, and I do. I
Yeah.
remember Mirage, but yeah,
And anymore though, you have to be a Turtles aficionado even to follow that IDW book.
yeah,
And aren't they introducing a bunch of female turtles? They're kind of going SJW on that.
they have a female turtle. Yeah, another female turtle. Now they did it
Oh,
back
they have
in the
a female
90s, but
turtle?
now they have a. Yeah, I forget her name. Now I can't think of it. But,
And there's so much cool stuff they could do with that property if they wanted.
yeah.
If they wanted.
Kevin Eastman's going to be at Extra Astronomicon in February here in Michigan. So I got a new turtle.
Good for him. I haven't been invited, so I won't be there. So.
One on the side. But Randy,
It's
could
okay.
some of these people who are these companies that are, because I've seen companies go out and crowdfund books.
Hmm.
Okay, publishing companies go
Yeah.
out and crowdfund a book.
Right.
Shouldn't they take some of that profit though and put it back when they can put it back into their company to keep their company viable?
And some of them do, and those are the more viable businesses. You know, Coffin Comics, although you know Josh hates me bringing them up all the time, is doing that. Zach from Splatto Comics is doing it slowly but surely. All Caps Comics will be doing it. I mean, he's turning that around and doing a book where he's hiring people to do comic art pages, and he should have, started a gangbuster company off of that. Well, look at Allegiance Arts. They didn't even really have any money, and they started a company
Yeah.
where they're out getting people and doing crowdfunding stuff. That's all of the Allegiance sprung off of the Red Rooster campaign, even though he hasn't fulfilled that book yet. You know, Mitch is really concentrating on it, and he's mea culpa and explained to everybody, well, this is why, everything's been like that. But you really have to be transparent with those crowdfunding there. You get people mad,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
really mad.
I just feel like some of these guys though, and we know a lot of them have. They've and I say guys meaning, all genders. Some of these people who have done crowdfunding. Crowdfunding.
I thought
books
Tony was
successfully.
coming in. Tony, you're welcome.
No,
in.
he's on his way to work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'm
he's
sorry,
there.
Tony.
Yeah. But some of these people who've crowdfunded books, they get the money, they get the profit, they go buy whatever it is, a new, almost said a new VCR. Wow, what year is it? They go buy, a new television.
People are going to
or-
start thinking you're as old as I am, but
Yeah, they go buy, whatever it is they want. Maybe they go buy a new Yeti caster, and then
Hey,
they,
everyone. Hey, Jason Moore. Thanks for coming on.
how's it going, Jason?
He's listening this morning, probably from work.
And then they,
He'll be a guest at Grand Rapids also.
will
Good for him. Yeah.
And then they're not there anymore. They don't show up anymore. They come back next year. Hey everybody, thanks for crowdfunding issue 1. Here's issue 2 now. I need more money. Let's see. Oh, MBSLZ says, I hear hubbub about Mitch trying to get a deal to put books in Walmart. I think he's got the deal.
He's got it, M3SOZ. He wouldn't have announced it unless it was secure enough that that he figured it couldn't be walked on, because he's seen so many people walk on his career the last couple of years that he wouldn't have. He did a big explanation. If you go over to the Red Rooster campaign, he does an explanation why that book is late. Which, before that explanation was out there, it didn't make any sense for him to be so far behind. But now it kind of makes sense about what he's been doing, and he's got people now watching Allegiance so that he can really concentrate on what he's supposed to have been doing. So, and he's back up working on Red Rooster.
Get that book out.
Get it out as fast as you can.
Mm-hmm.
That's as good a quality as you possibly can. And he's and I'm sure he's tensing up just like Ethan did when he saw the numbers come in on Cyberfrog 1, and he's like, oh, holy crap, I'm going to have to give them their money's worth and just bend over backwards to get it done.
M3 says Walmart is a big store. Product placement is going to be very important. That is true. Where they put those books at is going to be a huge.
Well, yeah, that's true, M3. But you also have to remember that this is the fourth time that Walmart has tried to do exclusive products, exclusive comic part that I know of, and they might have done a lot more than that. But way back when, Caliber Press had a deal to go into Walmart's, and they were making manufacturing books for that. That's where UN Force came from. That might be before your time. UN Force didn't last very long, probably a year. It was not a good product, but well, I can't even say that. It was a good attempt at a product, and it just didn't catch on in the Walmart stores. The Walmarts ordered 250,000 print run on each one of those, and did a test market through some of the southern states, and it didn't take off very well. I had a product or a property that was supposed to be the second book in, that I had 2.5 books done up on. I was really proud of that too. That never saw the light of day. I printed it in a little Zim's Heroic Tales collection that nobody has seen, because I only printed 150 of them. But then after that, Marvel had a deal with them to do 6 books, and they didn't want to run the big continuity that Marvel already had, so Marvel started the Ultimates line for them, and that was also for a quarter million books that were tested, and they kept those running through the Walmarts for many years, and they also ran them through the retail shops. That's where the Ultimate Universe literally came from, where everything started over again. Well, they didn't start over for the retailers, because Marvel has no respect for the retailers. They started over because Walmart wanted to try out some exclusive content books, and so that's what they did for them. Then just a year or two ago, DC started putting 100-page reprint books together for them, specifically for the Walmart stores, only for the Walmart, which is a beautiful format. I've got a bunch of them. And the only place you could find them was at Walmart. So they weren't in with the magazines. They were stuck with the Magic cards and the Pokemon cards, and you had to know where they were in order to find them. And then when you did find them, there was one little small pop-up display that was hardly ever had any content in them. So I'm hoping that they're going to give Allegiance a lot more exposure, a little bit more leeway. The products are solid. The visibility can be incredible. There's a lot of potential there. And we'll know in February, which is a really lousy time to start up a publishing venue in February. Whenever I did a book in February, it never went very far. Especially through the comic market. But hopefully Allegiance will also be offering the product within the comic market. I do not know exactly what their deal is. And Mitch has not come out and said that it's going specifically through the Walmarts yet. It's just that it's a major chain. There's 4,000 plus outlets that they're suspecting that they're going to be in. And he has an upfront purchase order for 1 million books. And they're doing 4 titles. And each title right now looks like it's going to run six issues, so that they can eventually collect it. And everything at Allegiance, if you see that on their, if you see the Allegiance crowdfunding thing, those are all going to be advanced books, and they're trying to raise money now just to cover their expenses before the big deal kicks in, and to get the products together, because that's what they've been doing the last 4 or 5 months, and that's what they're going to continue to do until they're out in February. I suspect they're going to have a good 4 or 5 books done. Of each issue of each property before they start up in February. So Mitch has got a lot of work to do if he's going to be Red Rooster's going to be part of that campaign, as well as the other Allegiance books.
Trico says I had a copy of UN Force #1. Huge team, actually a bunch of national teams under the banner of that team.
Yeah, they had 24, I think, characters or something like that. They were trying to do Legion of Superheroes without the slow build that the Legion actually had when it started in Adventure Comics. It started with three characters, and they built out from there. But then all of a sudden, here's a huge group of characters, and there's a couple characters from each major country, and boom, here we go, catch up. Yeah. The property that I had done for them that was going to be under that, and Gary was calling that Gauntlet Comics because he wanted to separate it from Caliber Press. Mm-hmm. That was going to be the new breed, and I had 6 or 7 members on a team. Each one was very distinguishable from the other one and had their own unique superpowers. But UN Force was just too much, too hard. And again, that book looked really muddy. I think that you can literally see the marks on it where they colored it with a magic marker and printed it. It was very muddy and very convoluted.
You mentioned something.
It was pretty rough. I've got the whole set.
You
back
mentioned
here.
that a
Just-
book
just ran
releasing.
across it.
You mentioned that a book releasing in February wasn't.
As
book that went too far.
we've always considered February to be a death month
Is-
because it's
is
the middle of
releasing
winter.
a-
Nobody wants to go out.
Is releasing a book though that like Hollywood is known for releasing movies like, oh, this is a summer movie, this is a winter movie or whatever. They used to consider with December and November and December dead months. They used to, but I guess
Oh no,
that's changed.
no. December was always that's Hollywood as movie releases have always been concentrated when they know that there's people that want to be in those seats.
Yeah.
They
Maybe-
never used to do a summer blockbuster until Jaws.
Yeah.
They never thought about it
Now-
because they always felt everybody would be out playing.
Is that something comic distributors or comic publishers should consider?
Well, it always mystified me that a lot of the big events used to happen in September, which is when all of the people of college age went back to college. Because I always thought that would cripple them. We always had a hard time selling a title during the winter. We always saw a dip in sales because who wants to go out? Nobody wants to go out during the winter or go to their local retailer. You know, you at least up here in the Midwest, maybe down in the South where the snow isn't prevalent and the cold isn't prevalent, but up here we all want to hunker in and hibernate from like November until February. It's just that November and December are holiday months, and you go shopping or you go to the movies, or at least you used to. Now with the streaming services, I'm sure that's different. So an ideal month for Disney right now to release their Disney Plus streaming service is in November. That way everybody's bought in by the time December comes around. The whole family's over for late Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner. And they don't have anything to watch. They can just plug in a Disney movie, and sit there and all watch it.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Rob said he in the middle of a few things we wanted to share. He is sharing the Breakfast Buzz. Appreciate that, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Another person is always welcome to come on the show whenever he'd like.
Yeah.
Got a question from the Ask Me Anything. It's actually in regards to our Tuesday conversation about pacing in comics. This is Bradley. Bradley says that we are a bunch of babies, that pacing in comics has nothing to do with digital work. In fact, every panel should be done. I see that, Randy. See that quarterback. Every panel, every artist should be considering how the panel is taken as a single panel. We should be drawing basically every panel should be able to stand on its own, basically.
I think you should look at the format that you're doing your work in, because that's viable. If you're doing it off of the computer and you want it to be seen panel to panel, that's definitely your choice. That's part of the fun of doing sequential art, is you have so many decisions to make, and you are in so much. The artist, even the writer, is in so much control that you don't see, especially now that you've got these Hollywood movies all being written by committee. Rogue One, anyway. And with nobody up there who actually knows any type of, real experience. They should have advisors on all of those films. Take a look at this stuff. You have a war movie, you better have a military advisor working on it. But anyway, that's another story.
My first.
You need to do it in accordance to the way that you want it to be seen. It's an artistic choice. Now, if you're going to do a comic book where you're doing full pages, you need to consider doing it as a full page. Image kind of broke that out. And the other so-called decompressed storytelling, where you can read a book in 5 seconds and you sit there and you pick it up by, that's why they call it floppies now. You pick it up by the spine and you go, flip, 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 flip. Why the hell did I spend $4 on this? It was 3 sentences. Where back in my day, when you were spending 12 cents on a comic, or even 75 cents for a whole 100-page super spectacular, you could literally take an hour to an hour and a half and be entertained with 4 or 5 different stories, and whole stories, not one of 6, and sit there and enjoy it. Where nowadays you buzz through a comic in 10 minutes and you sit there and you either want the next chapter or you wait and you have to binge read it in order to try to get a story.
Yeah. Nowadays you have to.
Or pick up a graphic novel.
Nowadays
you get a story.
have to read. You have to go ahead and wait for the trade. Wait for the trade.
Or you collect everything together. My wife's a very big comic reader. She's got a stack of comics, and a notebook where she has to keep track of the numbers in order to go, oh, got that story done. I can put that on this pile so that I can read the whole story at once. These other stuff, we're still waiting for numbers to come in. And heaven help you if the retailer gets shorted on a number 2 or a number 3, where they have to go back on and then reorder from Diamond, especially if it's in an independent book, because Diamond rarely sends out purchase orders on independent titles. You could be screwed for months, and then you have to go to conventions and say, you got new comics? You got new most of them don't, you know, as they've ordered so few on this product. You have to, anymore, you would almost have to go up and buy it directly from the source. You'd have to get it from the store of the independent comic company, if they have one, and buy it individually just to get the whole story. So, or buy the trade.
I don't have a graphic for this email. But let me see if I can bring it back up. Okay. Yeah. And it's funny because we kind of touched, we talked about this kind of off air, but it's happened to someone. A creator, he wants me to keep his name private. And
Mr. Anonymous.
Yeah, Mr. Anonymous has sent me a letter. He says that basically what's happened to him, Randy, is that he does not disagree with Comicsgate, and what's happened now is that his team is actually just his artist has split on him because he's agreeing with Comicsgate and has come out as a Comicsgater. His artist has left with says he's not doing the book, even though he's done 15 or so pages. Yeah. He asked him for at least the pages or his money back. The artist told him asshole tax, and then hire a lawyer. Hire a lawyer.
Hire a lawyer. It's a shame, because if you really start watching this, and I know you're just going to get more hate for me saying this, but Comicsgate's a philosophy. It's not a person. It's not a trend. It's not a movement per se, as much as people just want to read good books. Anybody who wants, believe it or not, anybody who wants to read good comics without being hit over the head with preachy politics or religion, they're kind of agreeing with Comicsgate. Oh no, here comes the hate mail.
Yeah.
And if they were to take their time,
You can send all the hate mail to randy@indievolt.com.
if they want to take their time and actually look, well, it's like I said, a couple of months ago, these people need to get off of their high horse. They need to get an education, and they need to take a couple of breaths and actually look at this art form. Now, I consider myself to be pretty unique in this because you turned me on to these videos on YouTube that I sat down and started watching. But before that, I was outside comics. I was outside the direct market for 10 years doing a comics newspaper. And I was catering to everybody. I was dealing with every demographic. I was dealing with angry mobs for doing the most ridiculous, smallest things in the paper. I had to go through and edit the James Bond strips and make sure that the bikinis on them were dark enough so that a mom who was casually looking at it would actually see that the girls were properly dressed, because the English strips are completely different from the American strips, and they don't have a problem with a topless female. But everybody over here does. Yeah, your dog's going crazy.
Yeah.
But when I come back into comics and really started looking, I was able to see it from a decade's distance. I got out of comics back when Jemis was running Marvel and running Marvel into the ground, and there was a whole different Zimmerman, a whole different Zimmerman out there that was doing Rawhide Kid and just messing that property up to no end.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the time that I took a step back. I had my own business here in Flint where I was doing apparel wear, and I was kind of not doing comics for a while. I had just gotten off of doing Arrow comics and was fed up with Diamond and stopped trying to do anything in the direct market.
Did you get blamed for the Rawhide Kid about it? No.
I have in the past. You're that Zimmerman guy who wrote that run. I'm like, no, that's not me. I'm not even related to that guy. He just happens to share my same last, and I'm sorry that he does that too. That was a Ron Zimmerman, but not a Randy. But anyway, and he was on Howard Stern. He had a big rep. He was hired off of his rep, not from his talent, to do this. The first thing I want to do, it's Rawhide. And whenever I think of Rawhide, I think gay, leather gay. Let's turn Rawhide into a Rawhide Kid into a leather gay character. Anyway,
and Rob says we now have a page just for indie comics and news, comics news. So his new Facebook page.
thanks for the self-promotion and branding is very important.
Yeah.
You gotta be out there, and you gotta keep being even little small podcasts like us. You need to be out there, and you need to be seen.
Trico
you know?
says back in the day you could get your hands on a giant sized man thing and have fun with it all night.
Well, yeah, that's the most adult comic title Marvel ever did, and it didn't have anything to do with adultness. It was all a swamp monster.
Ralph says,
Hello?
hell, you get
Hell.
3 complete stories in some of these horror comics.
Yeah. Well, that was bad. The old ECs were phenomenal. 8-page stories, tight endings, O. Henry type twists to them, just beautiful stuff. You know,
He also says, I don't think most writers in comics today could
do a
write
story. Yeah.
stories, yeah.
No, I don't think they could either. Whoops.
Trico says, I have no problem with topless females. Please send all images to
I-
tricoindievote.com.
I need you to stall for a few minutes. This call is too important.
Okay. M3SOZ says, Comicsgate is an indie movement using troll tactics of hot button pop culture topics to find comics customers on a digital medium. There's an argument for that. And sometimes I think that if you're on YouTube, and I think we've even been guilty of it. Taking a topic and saying, "Hey, can I exploit this for clicks and views?" Yeah, we're pretty bad about it too. But the thing is, it's working, and I think we have to figure out other ways because trolling only goes so far till everyone gets pissed at you. There's a point where you're going to piss off the wrong group of people, and you're gonna be a very sad person.
Sorry about that, but it was important.
No problem. Josh says, sips coffee. The contrast of societies. UK, no guns, but nips okay. US, no nips, but gun okay. So this is Morning Club.
Yes. Yeah, that's very true. Every country has their different mores, different sense of ethics. That's so true. What were you talking about while I was gone? I'm sorry, that was an important call.
Well, M3SOZ had made a comment. He said, Comicsgate is an indie movement using troll tactics of hot button pop culture topics to find comics customers on a digital medium.
And again, the Comicsgate is such a terrible word, and it's a nasty label, and it's being applied to a lot of stuff that people don't like, and a lot of stuff people do like, and people just can't come up. You go up to 3 different people in the business and ask them exactly what Comicsgate is, you're going to probably get 3 completely different definitions. It's a matter of getting up there and getting to know these people. Some people are nasty a-holes in and outside of Comicsgate, and some people are good and decent people who just desperately want to entertain with comics.
Varian, you got time to make short vids talking smack about pop culture hate? I could. I've started doing some more short videos on my Facebook page.
I'm rediscovering my inner Spank the Monkey. That's what's happening to me.
I've got what did I do the other day? I did my disingenuous couch video. I did a snatching manga from my son video the other day. He was reading manga. I told him I want this manga out of here. So yeah, I should put it on anyway.
And I still persist that manga would not be hot today if Marvel had bothered to, and Marvel and DC both had bothered to cater to a wider audience.
Yeah.
Instead of just listening to that demographics. Oh, our buyer is a 25 to 50-year-old white dude sitting in his parents' basement and perpetuating that horrible stereotype.
But you know what's funny is that means in order for Diamond to get those analytics.
No, your analytics. Yeah, either way is fine.
In order for them to get them, they would have had to have talked to comic shop owners.
Yeah.
And say, who's buying comics from you?
And again, that's why you have the people at Marvel yelling at the retailers. We didn't make these comics for you. You're just a misogynistic white guy who owns a comic shop. Educate these people. Hey, here's a book for a diverse audience coming out, and it's going to be great. Make great comics. People aren't going to care what race, religion, whatever. You could even be preachy and political and religious in those books as long as it's done right and not beaten over people's heads with it.
Yeah.
you know, and it's all a matter of going out there and doing product that quality product that people want to read. You know, that's the aggravating thing with this whole business. You get these people up there who don't know how to write, who all they want to do is preach. Or, you know, I sit around all day and eat pizza and shawarma. That's what my character is going to do. You know, who try to write themselves as opposed to writing actual characters. And you get a mess. And that's what they've inherited. You get some quality people together with a decent amount of money, you could take this business. You can take this industry. You just have to, you know, get it together and get it coordinated.
I wonder if
It wouldn't be hard. And I've never seen the market so vulnerable for a takeover like that. Just somebody to walk in and do a, you know, all of a sudden, boom, here's Aardvark Comics. You know, we're doing 3 books next, you know, in 6 months, we'll have 6 books. And 6 months after that, we'll have a dozen books out there, and they're all going to be great, and they're all going to be, you know, not really inexpensive, but good quality stuff. And we're doing brands and not stories or IP properties, hoping that Hollywood's going to see us, and let Hollywood come to you. You know.
so Randy, I have a question. I have a quick question, real quick, because this is related to indie news in a way. Oh, is it still can't go Facebook to small window? Shameful. Stopped over here. Okay. Yeah, Josh. It's Facebook is weird. They won't let you do a lot of stuff unless you're like on a full size desktop. Then it's
Facebook will always be weird.
so. Real quick, while we still got everyone's ear, everyone here has probably or they're aware of the Mark Wade lawsuit with Zach, your boy Zach. His lawyer, Mark S. Zaid. Mark Wade's lawyer, Mark S. Zaid, is now the attorney for the whistleblower
Yeah.
in the Trump situation.
Isn't that wonderful?
First of all, what? Well, first of all, Mark Wade's case is screwed. Then they think he's gonna give a damn about that. Now he's got something bigger.
Well, I'm very, very sorry to tell you this, but if you really look at Mark Wade's case and the evidence that's already against him, as if they can't get that evidence tossed, he's screwed anyway. That's why it's all been stall on Wade and Zaid's part, is because they know that there's a problem there, that they have to they've been trying to correct it ever since the lawsuit started.
Ralph says all Marvel did was manga based on their own characters doing superhero type stories in the manga style. But I think by the time they got around to doing that,
they're doing
it was
that.
too
They're
late.
doing that again too, Ralph. They're going to try it again. Every couple of years, they try to do a manga line in the hopes to catch a foreign market.
Yeah, but by the time they got around to doing it, it was far too late.
Oh yeah, but
Rather than catering to them, you know, with different stories in that Western style of art, you know, they're trying to follow the follow the leader.
just think of it though. You've got kids out there for the last 10, maybe 15, maybe even 20 years who are willing to read a book in reverse in order to be entertained.
Some are trying to learn different languages.
And yes, they're learning Kenji. Yeah, they're how to do the sound effects and all of that, and they've learned this whole series of icons because there is a specific set of icons out there that are manga specific, that are entertained by that stuff, and they are crazy over these properties. My Hero Academia, Fruits Baskets, whatever it is. They're willing to buy that stuff and read it in reverse just to be entertained. And Marvel and DC can't seem to do anything to capitalize on that. There's something wrong.
Trico asked, do you think Zach, Ethan, and the other guys would ever team up to start an Image-like company?
No, I don't think you're going to see that. And Image is a unique idea. Image is no longer around. The Image that you're talking about, Trico, is no longer around. Those 5 or 6 guys have all spread out and done their own stuff. Liefeld isn't doing Image books right now. He's doing work for whoever, Marvel or DC, or depending upon which rumor that you want to listen to or what the rumor mill is, he might be doing who knows what in the near future. You know, Silvestri, when's the last time anybody heard from him? McFarlane's got a toy company and he does Spawn. That's what he does. Larson does Savage Dragon. That's all he does. You know, and where's Valentino? He's gone. I haven't heard or seen anything from Valentino. And Image as a company is just like every other independent book or independent company, except they're set up to always break even. There will always be an Image Comics out there because of the foundation from Image, because the people that are doing the properties are paying to have those books done. So Image ain't losing money. Image is not losing money on anything that they print. They're at least breaking even on it at the backs of the people that are producing the product. You know, at the very least. And if they're lucky, if the wheel spins in the right direction, they land a Kirkman, you know, who sells a shit ton of books, and they're happy, and they let him run off on his own set and do whatever he wants, Sky, whatever. He can branch off at any second if he decides that he's tired of dealing with Image. You know, you're not ever going to see these guys all get together. They've already shown they can't even get together and be a solid movement for any length of time because there's so much dissension in there, because there's so much money that comes in. And again, this idea, this label of Comicsgate is so poison that these guys go off in religious direction. These guys go off in a political direction. These guys just want to do comics. You know, it's ridiculous, and it's a term that never should have stuck with these guys, and it's a derivative off of Gamersgate, which was a whole different thing, which is a derivative off of Watergate, which is a whole different thing. Gates all mean scandal.
Gate.
You know? Gate. It's a gate.
Yeah, I was waiting for Gate from the Gatekeeper stuff came out. I was waiting for
Well,
it.
that's Kickstarter Gate.
Yeah.
Gate.
Did you hear, by the way, Randy? We got a in 2020, starting in January, we can no longer use the N word on YouTube. No, not that N word, Randy, not that N word. The four letter N word.
N to the I to the C to the E. We can no longer be nice.
No. We can be nice. We can no longer use the four letter N word. We can't even say it. It will get us.
N to the what? N to the what? I'm not
N
sure.
to the A, to the Z, to the I.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a bad word.
Yeah, starting in January, we can't use it. Yeah. Oh, the video will be removed. So I asked everyone else.
Really?
Videos out there, yeah. The video's gonna get removed.
What about in the comment section? Somebody goes around and does that 3 or 4 times in the comment section. Is that going to get the whole video removed?
I'm not sure how that's gonna work.
We're going to have to get somebody with a wrench then to start watching when anybody's printing, especially if we start getting haters.
Yeah. Like, hey, you can't say that. He's saying the N word.
Yeah.
The other N word.
The double N word.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, the NZ word.
Yeah.
That's what it'll be known as.
Yeah.
Thanks to the guy with the last name of Zimmerman. Yeah. And German at that. German derivative. Yeah. I'm a mutt, by the way. I'm not solid German. Josh says, lest we forget Ramos with Attack on Titan with Avengers and Spidey. I'm not quite sure what that means.
In regards to our anime.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of anime out there that's ingenious, that's beautiful. You know, it's a great art form. And I'm not saying that there shouldn't be fans of that stuff. Attack on Titan's amazing. Even the movies, Attack on Titans, are amazing. And they actually have an ending, too, which I thought was pretty amazing, with a good ending. Nutter.
So, yeah.
N3SOZ is guessing.
Yeah, and is it Nutter, yeah.
Nutter. Anyway. But yeah, those properties need to come out there. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be. It's just that the market for them here in the States would not be as big as it was or as it is if Marvel and DC had just bothered to recognize that there are other demographics out there that they've needed to cater to for decades, not just for the last 4 or 5 years, and then all of a sudden go, well, we'll just put them in libraries. That'll make money. You know.
He says that was Marvel's attempt about 4 years back to create an anime brand. Yeah, I remember an anime manga brand in the U.S. That is, yeah.
They did it. Yeah, well, they try every 4 or 5 years. Like I said, they'll go out there and they'll hire people. Go, hey, we need you to do manga off of our superhero characters. So, and that should have always happened too. You know, Marvel was huge over in Britain for years. I've got some wonderful examples of their reprint stuff. They used to run through the entire Marvel catalog every 4 years, and they still sold the heck out of them in the most bizarrest formats you could ever imagine. And more formats that you literally have to see to believe and go. They used to sell comics that looked like that. Comics used to be this wide and that skinny, and you used to open them up wide, and there'd be 4 comic pages listed there. Just crazy stuff, man. That's where Captain Britain came from. Is they created Captain Britain specifically for the British market. Claremont was writing him, and I believe it was Herb Trempy was drawing it originally. That they were doing weekly little 10-page Captain Britain stories over there, and then Alan Moore come in and started writing Captain Britain just unbelievably, as Moore was on a hot streak at the time, and actually writing superheroes. So,
I've seen there's a YouTube video of this. This is how Watchmen broke Alan Moore.
How
I
it
haven't
broke
watched it.
Alan Moore?
Yeah.
I don't
haven't
think it
watched
was
but,
Watchmen that did that.
What do you think it was?
I think it was
DC?
the industry in general. He just got fed up with the industry. But I think the ABC situation with Wildstorm and Marvel or DC was what really ticked him off and sent him off. I think that was the straw as far as mainstream American comics go.
If you would have taken that internship years ago, do you think you'd be fed up with the industry now?
Oh, probably. All depends on where that went. I don't even want to think about where that internship was also with Sid Jacobson. So, he didn't last much longer at Marvel. He had a big career in comics, though.
Yeah.
I was the more I read about him afterwards, the more I was like, yeah, might have been a good career move to have taken that deal, but I was in the middle of a divorce at the time, so it was a good personal, and my head wasn't in a good space. And when he told me, well, they only paid $9,000 and he had to move to New York, I literally laughed in his face. I said, no, no way, nope, not doing that, nope. Even if I roomed in with 4 other guys in a small room, it still wouldn't survive.
Yeah.
Out there, so.
New York's a tough town.
An anime manga brand in the U.S. That is, yeah.
That was related to the other question before that. Yeah, I think that they probably. I think that Marvel, the problem with trying to do manga, is that they're following the leader. I mean, when you say, Randy, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but when you say that they didn't cater to that audience, that female audience, that wanted manga, or that even the male audience, the young kids that were getting the manga. They could have kept the art style the same but they didn't cater. Oh, do you think they should have tried to embrace that manga influence?
They should have played with it earlier to an extent, but their big thing is they decided where their demographic was, and that's all that they wanted to do. And we make so much money off of this widget. We're going to keep doing that widget until we can't make that widget anymore. Instead of trying to be creative and trying to bring in new characters. And there were characters out there that they had in the 70s and 80s that were catching on, that they subdued or they dropped or they shoveled off to the side. Kitty Pryde really comes to mind right off the bat. Well, couldn't stay Kitty Pryde for long. Had to be Shadowcat. Well, she didn't have a Shadowcat. Well, let's give her a dragon. Well, no, let's take the dragon away from her. Let's do something else. Let's have her in a wild romance with. They didn't know what to do with these characters because they were catering to a solid, a demographic instead of trying to go off. And Shadowcat could have been an awesome property. Running off on her own. Black Cat even could have been an awesome property out running off on her own. They didn't bother to do it. Storm. When Wolverine got a #1, Storm should have gotten a #1. And there should have been a whole pantheon built right around that character. All of the big main X-Men characters, because X-Men was running so hot, Colossus, Nightcrawler, Storm, Wolverine, all should have gotten #1s. All should have been made to run. Gambit should have been kept out there and had some attention and talent given to it. Anytime they had a big character spring up out of the X-Men, boom, here's a book. And they
because
never did
Spider-Man
that.
managed to get 4 titles.
Oh, he had a lot. Yeah. And X-Men in general had a ton of, and they kept adding more characters to the X-Men over and over again. That was just, and like UN Force, it was just slaughtering it with way too many characters and not enough characterization.
because the X-Men were getting, you know,
They had whole new teams coming in.
yeah.
Announce, well, this
X-Men.
team's such and such, and then boom, they're gone. Like
I mean,
the next
I-
issue or 2 issues later,
I
here comes
remember-
X Force. There goes X Force.
I'll tell you something. I'll tell you a story real quick. A very quick story, and I don't want to get off the track here, but when X-Men in the 90s, when I really started getting heavy in the comics, with remember these cards already? You gave me these cards already. He's here. You know, I
Yeah,
got
those
a
wonderful
book-
Jim Lee trading cards.
Yeah, yeah, and I got my book
They're
here.
sitting
that me and
around
my-
collecting dust.
I got a book here, the book me and my father put together with a collection of the cards as well.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, some of them have gotten lost. They come out the little packaging and they've gotten lost. But I can't look through the book without getting teary eyed. But the thing is,
We all have our guilty pleasures and nostalgia.
but
You know?
the thing is, I remember they split the X-Men team into two. They had X-Men Blue team and X-Men Gold team. And X-Men, the blue team was Wolverine, Cyclops, Wolverine, Cyclops, Jubilee, Beast, Gambit, Rogue. Pretty much everybody you've seen in the animated series. X-Men Gold was Storm, Bishop, I believe, was on that team, Archangel, Jean, and I didn't like that team. And I remember we went to the comic store because they were Uncanny X-Men, the Gold team. So I remember picking that book up and getting it and buying Blue Team books. And this guy who looks to me, he's a black guy, and he's like, "Hey, how come you don't buy Uncanny X-Men?" I said, "I don't like that because Storm is the leader of Uncanny X-Men. She's the leader of the Gold team." I said, "I don't like that team." And this guy looked at me as if I was a race trader. And he grabs the book. He grabs 3 of them. He walks over to the table as I'm cashing out. My dad was out in the car, I believe. I'm cashing out these books. And the guy says, "Here." He throws 3 books up there. "I'll pay for those. Get you a book of a black team leader." And that stuck with me for my entire life. And I really disliked those books. I didn't even read them that much. It was like, I don't like Storm's team. None of the characters in there, to me, I didn't like any of them. I didn't like any of them. I mean, I like Storm. Don't get me wrong. I love Storm, but I didn't like. She wasn't even in the book that much. I mean, the 3 books that I had, she was.
They didn't know what to do with her. They didn't know what to do with her.
And they still don't know what to do with her.
That's when they should have gone out and actually done a little talent searching and found it wouldn't have been too difficult to have found somebody who could write that character properly.
I had a
or with a little bit more care. They punked her out. They shaved her head. It's like, what are you doing that for? She's fine.
I had a Facebook conversation.
She has an origin. She's a solid character. They could have done a book.
I had a Facebook conversation with another publisher, well, independent self-publisher, and about Storm. Recently, Storm's been in the media because the colorist has made her. They weren't coloring her correctly. There's a picture of Storm and she appears to be your complexion, like in every panel.
Jeez.
And they're like, how dare you strip Storm of her, color? That's a big part of her identity. And
to that person, that's a perceived big part of her identity.
yeah,
And granted, way back when, in the old days when they used to do CMYK separations, every character had a key code. Every key code had a color combination, and that color combination included skin tone. And you had to hit that. That was part of your brand. And you actually had editors back then that were trained to care to make sure that all of those numbers were hit. And we did a shirt for Motor City. I think I told you this story. I don't think I told it on the air. We actually got permission from Marvel to put X-Men on a convention shirt back when people asked, and back when they were very brand conscious. And we sent them the picture, and they sent us back the exact. It wasn't a CMYK code. It was there's a different notation that I could find here in a second, but I'm not going to take the time. They had an actual color code for Beast's fur. You have to hit this blue. Nobody does that anymore. They don't have editors up there. That was an editor problem.
Yeah.
With putting Storm into the wrong skin tone. That was an editor problem. That editor should have been called to task and there should have been, maybe not a reprimand, but pretty much a wagged finger in their file about, dude, you better start doing your job or you're going to be out the door.
Yeah, I think that is that too much oversight though, Randy? Is that too much oversight, like color codes
No.
for comics? You don't think so?
Nope. I don't think so at all.
So I'm not
because
being.
that's all part of marketing and branding. You have to make sure these characters all look the way that you mean them to look in order for them to be printed correctly in the outside medium and to be portrayed in Hollywood.
I'm not
You're going to
being-
have Kirsten Dunst suddenly coming in playing Storm instead of Holly Berry. I'm not. I'm dead serious,
I
and you
remember-
need to stay conscious about that stuff. And these companies, especially, and I'm sure there are companies out there that are very. You can't print somebody's logo. And I used to print shirts for years. You can't print somebody's logo on a shirt unless you have an agreement from them that you can do it in a single color, like black or white. If you do it in color, you have to hit that color code on that. And I've had entire runs of shirts rejected because the red in a little square was the exact wrong, was 2 shades off from the shade that we were supposed to hit. They are that brand conscious. And these companies need to be that brand conscious because all of these characters are brands. Their logos are brands. Their character likeness is a brand. And anytime you change that likeness, you are literally changing that brand.
Well, I
They don't look at that in comics anymore because they
I don't
just
know if-
spin the wheel and do whatever they want.
I remember Marvel had it leaked too. They had his little Spider-Man bylaws, and one of the bylaws stated that Peter Parker is a white straight male, and that hit the internet about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And it pissed some people off.
Sorry.
They're like, what are you talking about? Why does he have to be straight? Why does he have to be a white male?
Because
Because
that's the way it was created. If you want something different than that, you create a new icon. Miles Morales
yeah,
was created to be a different icon.
Yeah.
It's not Peter Parker, it's Miles Morales.
yeah,
Different costume, different look, different background. Great.
slightly different power set.
Slightly different power set. Yeah. Do that. That's what
Yeah.
you're supposed to do because then you can sell Peter Parker and you can sell Miles Morales instead of just selling Spider-Man.
Yeah,
There's always room out there for better icons and better role models. And there will always be. And there should be from these companies. It's just that when you take and you capitalize, or you try to capitalize off of a previous icon by being diverse or changing the culture or the skin tone or whatever, all you're doing is cheapening your brand instead of trying to make a new brand.
where do you? In the US, says, where do you think most of the manga is purchased at in the States? Online.
Probably now. A lot
Yeah.
of it's purchased online. A lot of it's purchased out of bookstores in large volumes.
I used to go to a import store,
Mm-hmm.
and he had import video games, and he started carrying manga, and
Yeah.
so that's why I got all my Japanese video games from, because I had a modded system so I could play both American and Japanese
That's
games.
part of the charm of seeing international comics. And, you'd go to a Chinese supply store and pick up a Shonen Jump, or you'd go to a Mexican supply store and pick up Mexican comics. There's some awesome stuff out there.
Ralph says you can pick up lots of manga at your public library.
Well, that's because that's also been shoved down the public library's throat. It's an easy out and some quick money when Viz can sell an entire line of oh, this is hot for the kids. The kids are reading this. Well, guess what? The kids are reading that in reverse. And in my mind, that just adds to reading problems.
If you're watching this on YouTube, please drop a like and subscribe if you haven't. I'd appreciate
Gabriel Cantu says, I used to buy my manga at Borders. Now I get nearly all my anime manga online from Right Stuff. Yeah. You walk into Barnes & Nobles. Barnes & Nobles has a bigger manga section than they, probably twice or 3 times bigger anymore, than the American graphic novel stuff.
it. Yeah.
That's because people are walking in and picking up the Batman graphic novel and, or an Iron Man graphic novel, and it's a black female, a black teenage female, and they're like going, boom, boom, boom. This isn't Tony Stark. Where's the guy that looks like Robert Downey Jr.?
Yeah. Josh says, I'd say most manga bought bookstores like Borders and Barnes and Noble.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, they should have just went to manga because all those stores that they have.
Or more than likely, their friends have one, it's volume 5, and they want the everything up to that or more. They jump up on Amazon and order it, and they have it come to them, 3 to 5 days later. I bet Amazon moves through a lot of manga. I know they move through a lot of I know they move through a lot of foreign graphic novels. I've got all of my Judge Dredd case files and the 2000 AD reprints, and 2000 AD is an amazing book that you've never really been treated over here in the States correctly, with all sorts of different properties. They do all sorts of different reprints. So you pick them up like the old Showcase Presents, big, thick, black and white reprint books for $20. Barnes and Nobles have a lot of those. You need to, a lot of that stuff is self-contained, but if you pick it up in order, it's all great reading, just phenomenal reading.
Josh says, I'm lazy. I drop the flat colors.
Yeah.
Yeah, my wife started flatting for my colors. She would do the flats, and then it turns out that actually slows him down. So I'm like, oh well, you can stop now. He'll flat himself. He's used to flatting himself.
I don't know why that would slow him down, but that's not me. So everybody works different.
Ralph says part of the problem, most creators are not going to create their best properties for Marvel for many reasons. So just get a rehash of their old characters or slightly different versions of them.
That's deeply true, but also Marvel and DC are cutting back on their royalties for derivative characters.
Yeah.
So, a lot of there have been a couple of people. I think Liefeld is a big example. Back before Image started, and when he returned to Marvel, that was creating characters specifically as unique as he could for Marvel. Planning on the royalties to be his retirement fund. That was one of the reasons why he was really upset over Major X when they completely canceled his existence. Thanks, Hickman. Anyway, part of the problem, most creators are not doing, we already covered that. Josh says, so as a counterpoint, Randy, my local library has about 4 bookshelves of indie and current Marvel DC graphic novel trades and about 2 bookshelves of manga. That is unusual. Altogether, would you say indie books are a deterrent to reading as well? No, I wouldn't say indie books are the majority of, well, a lot of them. I won't say. Every indie book has to be taken on its own, obviously, because it's an IP property, and a lot of these indie books have got to learn to start telling competent stories, so that you can pick up a graphic novel and actually get a beginning, middle, and end. I've run into that a lot. As far as indie product goes, but I've also run into that a lot with Marvel and DC product, because all you're getting is a quick flash anymore, because all of their events are 1 of 6, and once the 6 are done, it's all thrown together, and they don't expect you to know, or they expect you automatically to know where the character was before that and where the character's going after that, and it gets really irritating. Back when Jim Shooter was editor-in-chief, we used to have that irritating paragraph up above every floppy, up above every story that explained who the character was and any important thing that happened to that character. You get the exact same thing now on any of the drama shows that you see on television where they do that previously on such and such. Previously on Arrow, here's all of these little clips from previous shows with all of the information you need in order to be able to ramp in to the current episode. Without getting an entire background of their history. Marvel and DC desperately need to do that, but they also desperately need to do a whole series of reprints. But that's a whole nother story.
So how does manga hinder reading?
From front to back, you're reading it from back to front.
Oh, you mean the way?
I can't read one.
Yeah.
I would love to, but when you're starting in the back, every time I'm so programmed to read left to right, up to down, instead of right to left, up to down, that I get to the end of a page, I instinctively go left, and instead of going right. Well, the kids now are picking it up and instinctively going right, and how is that helping them read American books?
I see what you're saying.
That has to be leading to a lot of reading problems.
Gabe says Barnes & Noble has an aisle and a half of manga, but only about a quarter of an aisle for American graphic novels.
And believe me, BNN stocks it because it sells. But there are also a lot of these manga properties out there that are hitting volume 20, volume 25, and all that. And then BNN doesn't carry the first couple of volumes. Any new kid coming in, they have to go someplace else, or they have to special order those books from Barnes and Noble in order to get the entire run.
Ralph says we always did in our story this
Yep.
far.
Yep. And Marvel
catch up
played
with
around
new
with that
reader.
in the past, but they found that it cut into their inside front cover ad space and revenue, so they stopped it. Or they put it on the first page, which is where they've always thrown a splash before, and people didn't like it, so they stopped doing it.
Gabe says the left to right reading format might confuse young readers.
Yeah, the right to left.
I know Caden's Pokemon books are flipped. They flipped. They did. They flipped. They went in. They reformatted.
Well, when
the
when they first brought manga over from Japan, they flipped the art, and the manga creators got really upset at that. So they ended up doing back to front, right to left, instead of front to
I
back.
got some.
left to
I got
right.
some Ranma 1/2 books like that. But that
You'll still see it every once in a while, and again, that just adds to the confusion. You know, you pick up a book at Barnes and Noble. When I do, when you want to look at it, you go, oh, wait a minute. Got to turn it over and then start reading it from the back, and I can't even get past a page before once a page is done, I instinctively go left
Yeah, the other one.
instead of going right and trying to read it. And I'm out of the story at the end of every page. And manga is set up very decompressed, so that you can run through a manga book in half an hour or 20 minutes. The same time it would take me to read a regular 100-page super spectacular, you're going through 300 pages on a manga.
Professor Trico says previously on any Marvel book, the hero and their entourage of friends went to lunch and talked about their problems.
Yeah, pretty much. That pizza was good. Let's go have more pizza. Yay. Anyway.
Josh says, so while I appreciate all the comic formats, I got a joke. Pokemon the manga is just a gateway book to Nevada.
Could be. Yep.
I'm gonna toss
I
out.
see that.
Caden
Which is a gateway to Dragon Ball Z,
well,
which
no,
is
Caden hasn't started with Dragon Ball Z yet, which I'm
a
surprised.
gateway to My Hero Academia.
He's Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh right now. That's what he cares about. He got Yu-Gi-Oh cards. He walks around the
But
house with them, challenging me to duels and stuff.
That also shows the charm and the intelligence of the Japanese manga producers, because they do properties that fit different ages, all ages.
Yeah.
They have manga over there of baseball, American baseball players. They have American Western mangas over there. There's all sorts of just a solid range of different things. And it's that way in most of the other countries, except for here in the States, because that demographic has been so entrenched that these retailers have a hard time surviving and getting in books of other demographics. That's why Marvel has kind of abandoned them and decided that the big market for Ms. Marvel seems to be the libraries. Instead of actually trying to make that market the retail shops, which is where most of the people, are already programmed. The big thing I found out doing Flint Comics, and the reason why I had all of the comic shops advertising in the paper constantly, thank goodness, because we wouldn't have been able to do a whole 100 issues without the different comic retailers that we had in the paper, was because they realized there's still people out there that have never stepped into a comic shop, let alone realize they existed. I had the big comic shop in town telling me that they were sure that the people, at least 85% of the people that were reading Flint Comics had never been to their shop before, and a large portion of them never realized there was a comic shop and would come in and look around. That's why they were so happy. They were big supporters of that paper, and because they saw that personally happen. They were always there every issue. They always bought a table at the shows. They endorsed everything that Flint Comics was all about, because they understood the capabilities and the fact that everybody out there loves comics. They just have to be shown how they can be entertained by them. And
Well,
walking in off of an Avengers movie and seeing a whole different Avengers team in an Avengers comic does not help that situation at all.
Well, I think that when every con, at least once a year at a show, I always hear someone say, and it's someone fairly young, I had no idea they were still making comic books.
Yeah, well, you get a lot of the independent producers. Dave or Ted is a really good example of that. You're doing what? You're doing comic books. I thought that was for kids. You're doing comics. I thought that no longer existed. There's comic shops. What's up with that? He is he's educating his people in his own little circle about what sequential art is all about. It's a very viable art form. It's an award-winning art form. It's won Pulitzer prizes, and you know that all of these movies are made out there for a reason other than just making bank. Especially the more intellectual ones like Watchmen and V for Vendetta. They all have points. They all have purpose, and there's a lot that can be said with the format, and it's just a format where you can say a lot of things if you want to,
Gabe says
if the companies will let you.
he says he thinks Dark Horse held out the longest for flipping manga, and he also says where's Shiro Otomo at now, Randy?
We are not sure. We lost contact with Shiro a long time ago. We do know that the rumors of his death were greatly exaggerated. Shiro did a book for us that we printed as Arrow manga. There's a big story behind that.
And then he says, I need another T-shirt.
We all need another T-shirt. We sold T-shirts for a while that said Shiro Otomo lives.
So. Okay.
There's a history of that. I'm not sure if it's still up at the Arrow Comics site or not. But Shiro Otomo will always live in our hearts. Whether he's still alive or not, we don't know.
Are you sure? Are you sure it wasn't CB Cebulski?
I'm positive. I am next to positive. I'm pretty sure. If it was, I wish he would remember us and give me a job. We'll go in there and clean that house out, no problem. Make me editor-in-chief of Marvel for 6 months and see how that goes. It might take that long in order for product to get out. But
You know what the problem is?
Love to
6
do it.
months. The problem is 6 months. You clean up in 6 months. You leave, and the next person that comes in gets all the credit.
no, that's not how that works, because Alonso and Quesada are turning out to be pretty much the scapegoats of the crap that they've done over there. It just hasn't been cleaned out totally yet, CB, don't be afraid to fire people who aren't performing. That's all I know. Or Akira Shitiro, or whatever he was calling himself. Don't be afraid to do that. It's okay. There's talented people. There are actually talented people out there. You just have to go to a few conventions or send people to conventions looking for talent. You can do it on the down low. It's all good. There are people out there. There's so many beautiful independent books out there. And if you quietly walked up and said, I represent a major company and we want to know if you want to work for us because we're going to pay you $2,000 a page, you'd have people go, hell yeah, I'll work for you.
Yeah.
What do you want me to draw? Spider-Man? Spider-Man? Crap. I'll draw Spider-Man. Yeah. They're out there. You just got to find them. You just don't want to look. Lazy. That's just lazy.
You'd rather check Tumblr.
Or you have a
rather check
Tumblr or
Tumblr.
a DeviantArt or where there's people out there that are talented to do those books and some of them even don't use light boards or trays and even have their own individual style. It could work. I'm just saying it could work.
Randy, last question before we get out of here for the day.
Really?
Is tracing
Ranted for almost 2 hours.
Is tracing? Can you spot it a mile away? In a book?
No, not anymore. Nope. No, you can't.
Is that because everything's traced? Is that because?
No, well, that's part of it, yes. But then that everybody works at a more realistic level, or realistic. Not everybody, but a lot of people work at a more realistic style. There's some stuff out there that you can tell are staged and traced, and other stuff out there, and it's not a new thing. That's the thing. It's really more prevalent now. But you've got guys that have to perform a certain page count every month, and they have to get that down to they're literally cogs in a great machine. And however they get that job done as best looking as possible with the cheapest amount of time, it is acceptable, and has been for years. You've got people that you swear people used to do comic strips where they were staged. They'd have models come in and stage them, and they still do, The more realistic strips, Judge Parker and that kind of stuff is probably worked off of some sort. And we've always had photo references. There's that classic picture of Joe Kubert, who was a big comic artist icon with a whole bank of file cabinets with all sorts of pictorial references. I need a picture of a horse running, and pull it up. And if he wasn't looking at it and drawing it, he was light boxing it. And then depending upon how your deadlines were working, you had assistants that did that or started doing that, or interns or whatever. You know, it's not a new thing. The problem is that comics, sequential art, is such a viable art form that there's always a need for realism and always a need for realistic artwork, but there's also a desperate need for whimsical, cartoony stuff. Most of the time I'm not drawing realistically, but when I'm drawing realistically, I'm pretty much pulling photos up and drawing off of it. I just don't make a big deal about it, because when I do my comics, I want to do art, and my art tends to be cartoony.
Yeah, Gabe says the diversity in genres is one reason I love manga. Also, that most titles are also a single story. Few series have reboots, alternate timelines, or different iterations of the same character until it's Neon Genesis. Then,
Yeah.
there's all kind of
The diversity in manga should be, American comics should be just as diverse, but they're not. And the reason for that isn't because there are comic retail shops. It's because these large companies have been programmed off of that silly demographic that I mentioned before, that always should have been broken out. And you've had people that have broke that demographic. You know, ElfQuest did not sell to a predominantly, I sincerely doubt that ElfQuest did not sell to a predominantly male audience. You know, and there have always been diverse books out there. There should have been a lot more, and there all kinds of my favorite comics are just well done comics. You know, whether it's manga, and that's why I love reading foreign comics from other countries. And one of these days we're going to do that show where your Indie Volt listeners are going to tell us what they're really enjoying. And reading overseas or in another country that's a hot property over there, because I've got a whole, you know, I've got, you see my library, I've got sets of stuff from all over the place, because I love reading great comics. It doesn't have to be superhero, doesn't have to be horror or science fiction. It just has to be good, and it has to be well done, you know. And that's the way American comics should be too. There should be everything out there for everyone, and everyone who are talented should be doing great comics.
Yeah. Ralph says if they set up like they used to, just looking at portfolio, Lord knows the talent they might get.
I think they'd be stunned. I do, but they won't do it. They're just too lazy to do it. And a lot of this talent, especially in the from 2000s to 2000 to now, have all been chased off. They don't want to do sequential art because the big companies aren't paying a lot. They don't pay enough they barely pay enough to the big guys to make a living, let alone make a good living. You know, and again, it's a self-defeating market. They're killing themselves by going down, circling the same drain with the same silly ideas, demographics, variant covers, event books, 1 of 6 decompressed storytelling BS, instead of actually getting out there and experimenting and being the creative art form that they absolutely ought to be. Am I off my soapbox here? Maybe I should step down.
We'll see if our special guest has to say anything about that. 1 second. Let's see. Hold on. Is it still not bad?
Ethan's never around, buddy.
He's never around when you need him.
Nope. He's always welcome on the show anytime.
Damn it.
Anytime he wants to get back in that chair,
Yeah.
he needs to let us know.
Probably I'm making 4 coins.
Anyway, hopefully one of these days. Anyway, if you like what you're hearing, make sure you tell your friends. We can always do for more listeners. We're always open for more input.
If you're listening on YouTube, please like and subscribe and ring the notification bell, because with those new rules starting, it's gonna be tight. It's gonna be tight to get.
They're always going to be tightening their algorithms in order to favor the large corporations. And we're not big. We're just little indie guys out here screaming in the darkness. Even if all we did most of today was scream at the mainstream.
Yeah.
We do mean to talk about more indie stuff, and there's a lot of really good indie stuff out there. So
Yeah. And
and please get an education. Get past that term comics gate. Don't let that stop you from actually looking at some good quality books. And if they're not what you like, make sure you voice your opinion on them too. You know, not just to us, but to the actual creators. Tell them to get better. Who is it? Russell. Richard C. Meyer, had a hashtag for a long time called "Move the Needle." That hashtag needs to come back. They really stigmified that hashtag really quick, didn't they?
Yeah.
You know, all of these. What do you mean, move the needle? Move the needle. The needle desperately needs to be moved to the realm of quality and art, and we need to do a lot more of it. You know, there's so many good comics out there that aren't being seen, and so much talent that's being discouraged, even all over the world. That desperately, if you want to do comics, you should be out there and fight your way to make a living off of it. You know.
Exactly. All right, thank you for listening, everyone.
Gabe
Check
says
us out.
Japan has the same problems with low pay for artists. They still crank out a chapter every week, though. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. And their artists are a lot more respected over there than we are here.
Oh yeah.
Their
Yeah,
artists,
they're
like-
artists over there. They're looked at as artists. Look
Yeah.
at Mobius. Holy crap! Look at
Yeah.
the stuff that he did. Even as Gene Gerard, he was respected as a genuine artist and given the respect that any other artist would get. It's just that comics are looked at as such kiddie literature and looked down the nose upon by so many people. That's why Scorsese goes, these superhero movies are crap.
I was really influenced on manga art when I was in high school. I was drawing a lot of it. Me and a friend, we had plans on going to the military so we can get stationed in Japan and, really soak up the culture.
Yeah.
And then we listened to a guy who was an American Japanese. I believe he'd been to Japan a few times, and he told us, he said, we used to go to this anime night every night, every other Friday at the college. And they had a lecture room that these kids would take over, and they would show imported anime, normally subtitled. Pretty much 90% of it was subtitled. And it was stuff that we couldn't get here, or we wouldn't have here yet.
I got copies. I had copies of My Youth in Arcadia at one
Yeah.
time at Galaxy Express $9.99. Yeah, Go 13. Phenomenal.
He told us, he said, look, guys, he said, I want to burst your bubbles here, but as far as the Japanese market, you will never be accepted
get
as
in.
manga artist because you're not Japanese.
Yep.
And so it broke our hearts. But, I've disseminated that information to other artists who have American style, who are Americans and they're drawing manga. I'm like, you're never going to get accepted as a manga artist in Japan because you're not. That's racist. They can't do that. Well,
Hello.
yeah.
America does not have the end all on that market.
Yeah.
That
So it's,
racism stuff. It's all over.
yeah. So think about that when you're drawing your manga. You can still, people will still enjoy your artwork, but they'll never consider you a true manga artist in Japan.
They catch you at a show and you're a hardcore manga artist. I thought you were Asian.
Yeah, exactly.
Holy
now
crap.
Now you've culturally appropriated their art style.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can't wait till that happens. You heard it here first.
I'm sure I'm sure that's already been a problem.
Oh, yeah. If it's not, then it will be. You heard it here first. If it hasn't been a problem, that within the next 3 years, someone's gonna get caught up appropriating manga.
Well, look at C.B. Cebulski.
Yeah, he did it for a name, but someone's gonna
Well,
get
he-
it for their art style.
He wrote under that. Didn't he do Big Hero 6?
Yeah, we'll target Eric first. He's big in manga. He draws he switches styles a lot, so we'll target him. All right.
Everybody, thanks for listening. Spread the word.
Yep.
Indie Volt YouTube.
Oh, wait,
I do a little YouTube channel too called Zim Geek. Mark Bloodworth. Hey, Mark Bloodworth. How you doing? Never draw anything you can copy. Never copy anything you can trace. Never trace anything you can cut out and paste up. I think that was a big saying for the longest time in comics. From I think didn't Wally Wood start that? Wally Wood might have started that.
That's a very good quote. I like that.
Yep. Well, when you're working at a page rate for a company and you got to make a living, you got to do any shortcut that you can get your hands on. And you'll see that a lot. Well, they'll take whole panels and just repaste them, depending upon how they want their pacing to go.
I got a book where a guy took a newspaper article.
Thanks for your comment, Mark. Glad you're listening.
He
You're
cut-
welcome on here anytime too, buddy.
Yeah, Mark, you should come
You
on
got
the show.
stories. You got stories to tell.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mark, I think that he took a newspaper clip of Detroit, and he took his character and cut around his character, put it on the cover, and took it, photocopied that so it's all together.
Well,
And,
it's art. You go back in some of those old Fantastic Fours and New God stuff. Kirby used to do that when he was telling a fantastic landscape. He'd pull out oddball pictures and just paste them on a page. Done. Draw a character in front of it. Boom. On to the next page. That's part of the fun of Kirby. When I was a kid, I hated his stuff, like I keep saying. But you really get in and you start looking at what he did. Circle, circle, square, 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 square. That's a hand.
Yeah.
That's why he had all these hands that come out with a, straight out at front. It's a square, 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 circle, square, square, square. And he had it down to basic shapes. And his whole sense of dynamics is all based out of very, basic shapes. Circle for the forearm, circle for the midarm, circle further from the elbow to the wrist, another circle for the palm of the hand. It all breaks down like that, especially in his later life when he was churning out a book every 2 weeks. You could see that really prevalent in the stuff that he would do. Neil Adams did it from time to time. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Neil Adams had a ton of apprentices too. So he had an entire continuity studios. He'd sit there and probably rough out a bunch of stuff and just it ended up passing down the line. The Koreans, I understood the Korean manga that they used to do. They used to have guys that would specialize in, one guy would specialize in hands, one guy would specialize in drawing jeeps, one guy would specialize in drawing trees, and they would just pass it all the way through the assembly line.
Was Continuity Studios, was that Neil Adams?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he started that in order to remove that horrible comic book stigma back in the day so that he could get commercial and storyboard work. He started a studio, continuity studio. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. We'd appreciate it.
Always
and ring that
appreciate
bell
it.
for notifications. We are getting out of here for the day. Randy,
We have a day to go. I've got to prep. I'm packing today to go to Grand Rapids tomorrow. I'll be at the Grand Rapids Comic Con Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Please swing by and say hello, especially if you just listen to the podcast and don't contribute. I'd love to meet you, and always willing to talk. So
Cool.
I'll be
there
moderating 3 panels while I'm there as well. Plus, I have the Zim Geek YouTube channel.
I'll be there too. I'm gonna come
All right.
sit at Randy's table.
Cool. Yeah. So you might see that. You might see that guy.
Yeah. This way. Yeah.
That guy.
yeah, with the
You might
raccoon
see
hat.
that guy behind the table.
Just look for the raccoon hat. I don't know what I'm gonna bring it.
Are you?
So, yeah.
I'll probably have this hat on.
yeah.
Yeah, it's all good.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. We will see you here Tuesday night.
Thanks a lot for coming.
at 9.
Viking Yoda won't be there though.
No Viking Yoda.
No Viking Yoda.
He's still on house arrest.
Yeah, he's housebound for a while. He's grounded.
Yeah.
He tried to start a crowdfunding campaign without my permission. So he's in trouble.
Worse, he tried to do it on Kickstarter. That's worse.
Couldn't get past the gatekeeper.
No. All right, everybody. You guys have a great weekend. We'll see you back here Tuesday.
Vikings, All right, man. Take.